Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Backline with Rob and Adam. My name is Adam Cawley, alumnus of the Second City Main Stage, and...
My name is Rob Norman. I'm author of the cool improv book, Improvising Now, Practical Guide to Modern Improv. I forgot the name of my own improv book.
As soon as I added a little "and," that screwed up your whole intro.
Well, because I was like, are you going to do the intro for me? Like, what's going on? But it turns out you were prompting me?
Yeah.
So you were trying to... So we've done maybe like 300 episodes. Never had a problem with the intro before. And you thought, today is the day I'm going to help Rob. And by helping me, you really fucked everything up.
There's this kind of thing in improv where it's like support, and I could tell that you're kind of in a mood. So I really wanted to support you. And I think if you're out there listening and you're like, I sometimes have a partner who's in a mood and you have to support them, write in, tell us your story, and we will read it on the air. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing very, very well. I just started teaching a new class, which is a monoscenes class with the assembly. We had our first class last night, and I was like, oof, boy, did I miss this. Boy, did I miss teaching advanced improv. I'm having a blast. I'm teaching all of the weeks at the assembly. Each week is a different instructor. So this is a class where I get to teach for all of the weeks in a row. And it was very fun. And I'm looking forward to the remaining weeks.
And is your class, is it any number of people in a monoscene or what?
No, I'm really focusing on two-person monoscenes. No walk-ons, no walk-offs, no tag-ins. It is literally, I set a timer. You're going to play with someone else for 5 minutes, and that's it. If you fuck it up in minute 1, you're going to be stuck in it for 4 more minutes. And it feels like everything that I learned when I was beginning is like, oh, we have to save someone. If something goes wrong, help them out, support them, walk in. But I think there's a very valuable lesson making someone sit in the swamp they made. You walk on and be like, oh, hello, it's me. I'm the mayor of Science Town. I'm on my skateboard, which is powered by dreams. I'm like, you can do that initiation. But at minute 3, when things go bad, don't look to me because I'm going to make you sit in it for an extra 2 minutes. You're going to feel that pain. And I think that's very helpful to new improvisers to be like, oh, yeah, my choices have consequences.
Right. I'll never forget watching, I think I've told the story a million times, but it was so funny to me. At intermission of a hockey game, there's a team that's down by 7, and it's going into the third period, and the reporter is like, well, coach, you're down by 7, you got 20 minutes to get back in there. What do you tell your team? How do you get back into this game? He goes, you don't. And the reporter's like, what? He's like, well, you can't do anything now. We're already screwed. What we have to do is get ready for next time so we don't let this happen. And it feels very much like that if you're used to like a montage or you're used to playing in a large group where if something goes wrong, you're out of there. They've been conditioned to protect you. But when you're in a monoscene and there's no one to help, you're kind of like, I have to do so much work. That can be fun, but just so much solid foundation work to be able to last, right? You're taking care of your scene's future. Well, that's great. Go ahead.
I was also going to say, like the monoscene is the reverse cut to, because the cut to has no responsibility. You're doing a scene with someone else, and I go, cut to Adam running from the dinosaur. And then you go and you're running from pretend dinosaur, and it doesn't get any laughs. And I'm on the side being like, yikes, that one didn't work out. Oof, Adam really pooched it on this one. The monoscene is, no, you're entirely responsible. You do have skin in the game. This is all you, my friend, all you.
And I think there is something, there's just a different level of appreciation from the audience, right? Where you think of a really great Herald that you've seen, and you're like, oh my God, those connections. Oh, how did all of these things come together at the end? How did you elevate this scene to a second beat? But in the monoscene, there's very few tricks that you can pull. And it's very much like, oh, you're watching a play where it's not the set that you love. It's not some sort of soundtrack. It's not amazing costumes. It's just black box, 2 people, go.
Yeah, and I feel like the skills you need in the mono scene are not like structural. Like there are some structural things that you should know, but for me it's all about finding the pocket. And the pocket is that place where you don't have to think anymore. It's the part of the scene that almost feels like it's it perpetuates itself. Mm-hmm. So like when you and I are playing and things are going well, it's not like I'm being like, what should I say to Adam next? It's like, oh no, my character has an opinion on what you just said. I need to speak and tell this other character what I'm thinking. So it's about finding that kind of fugue state for improvisers. And the trick of the monoscenes class is like, for different people, that fugue state can be accessed in different ways. So you're like showing them a schmarbard of options that that they could use to help them get into that space.
Well, you heard it here first. There's no need to take Rob's class. That's everything you need to know about the monoscene.
No, I'm so poor. Please,
Smorgasbord was my first ever Herald's suggestion. And at the time, I was probably 20, 19, and I had no idea what the word meant. And so we were doing all these group games, and I was terrified because I had no idea how to contribute, but I didn't want to do anything because I'd fuck it up. Memories. Nope.
But isn't that weird that even when you know what the word is, you still have no idea how to contribute?
Well, the trick is, if you don't contribute, you say, oh, I didn't know what the word meant. Or you can say things like, I just had a great show last night. I just want to make sure you have stage time. So I really didn't contribute and kind of distracted from the sidelines.
I was talking to some other people who are on your Herald team, and they were saying, like, is Adam English's... Wait, I screwed this up already. Is
you
English
can't
Adam's
make an English
first
burn
language?
if you fucked up the English.
I'm having a bad day.
You are.
I'm having a bad day with jumbles.
If you're listening to this and you have some time, check out the YouTube link because Rob's mustache, you know what? I got to say, I'm really into it. Yeah, no jokes. I think it's really great.
Oh. I showed up to Comedy Bar, and I was like, hey, guys, got a mustache. I looked around. All the other guys had mustaches. I was like, what do I do now, Adam? Do I grow sideburns? Like, everyone has a mustache at Comedy Bar.
Well, stop going to Comedy Bar. Rob,
Okay.
This monoscene stuff forms... been doing a lot of... I'm teaching an Armando class coming up. There's a lot of, I think, people coming back from the pandemic. Everyone's figuring out, what should I focus on right now? What should I specialize in? What's missing in my community? And so today I wanted to talk about duos. I think right now duos is kind of the easiest thing as people tiptoe back into the improv world because every theater is different. We've traveled quite a bit over the last few years and seeing how different cities are choosing to handle pandemic responses, how different cities are opening up, theaters closed, theaters are coming back up. So the duo just seems like this is the easiest. I can schedule it easier. The theater capacity can handle it. But as we kind of talked about with the mono scene, not all improv forms are created equal in terms of the skills needed, right? You've done kind of everything. You've done solo heralds. You've done group montages, musical improv, narrative improv.
Yes.
3-person mono scenes. But you and I have a duo. We play sometimes for 12 minutes, sometimes for 45 minutes. So today I wanted to talk a bit about what does that mean? What are the skills needed for a duo? So before we get in there, Rob, you love all kinds of improv. I know some more than others. What do you love about a duo?
What do I like about the duo?
Love. Not like. What do you love?
Well, don't put words in my mouth. That's bad reporting. That's bad journalism. What I like about the duo is it is that Thunderdome aspect, which is like, I'm in this with you. There's no way out. We only have each other. I find with 2 people, you can also maneuver a little bit more easily throughout the scene because I'm only dealing with your thoughts and my thoughts. We can go to places that maybe might be hard to do if there was 8 people. For a while, I was teaching a narrative class where we were doing single protagonist stories, like epic quests and stuff, and they were really challenging because improv isn't designed to have a main character and then secondary characters. Everyone's a main character in improv. That's why improv is fun. But in duo prov, it's a bit easier because, you know, in the form that you and I do, we might decide that your character, Adam, is the main character, but I'm also still the main character because I'm playing every single secondary character in this show. So I can kind of push you along. I'm still quite involved in it. I'm not doing one move and then sitting at the sidelines for 20 minutes. Yeah, and I also the final thing would just be like the personal part of duo improv. I think it's more intimate than playing with a group of 8 people because it's you are just with one other person. You have to deal with their feelings. You have to deal with their ideas. There's no tag-ins. There's no fancy frills around the edge of the scene that you can rely on to kind of disguise a disconnected scene. You really got to be there. You really got to be present, and that's very nice in an art form where people are constantly yelling at you. Sounds like a song.
Oh my God. If someone yelled sounds like a song, especially from the audience, what would you do? You're in a montage and someone goes, sounds like a song. Do you yell, no?
I was doing a roast battle in character, and the host of the roast battle, they knew I was an improviser, and they yelled, sounds like a song at me. That's why I said that. I was thinking about that.
I remember.
And he said to me before the show, he goes, I'm going to yell sounds like a song at you on stage. What would you do? I'd be like, I would hate it. And then he did it.
I remember at the Canadian Improv Games, this is kind of the high school tournament in Canada. It was in the gold medal kind of finals at the National Art Center in Ottawa. And a very prominent member of the improv community, an old school member of the improv community, in the middle of the show, yelled out, louder, please. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't think everybody was having a hard time hearing, but this was an older gentleman. But it was quite jarring for the people on stage. So it was kind of that sounds like a song moment, but for teens doing their first improv ever. Very difficult.
Yeah. Yes.
Rob, you talked about the intimacy, the kind of the reliance that you put on the other person, right? It's the only person you can really look to for any kind of help, right? Mm-hmm. We've all been in that experience in a montage where you might have eyes from one side of the stage to the other of people also on the sidelines or the back lines being like, I'm giving you that look that signals we need to do something or something needs to change here. But we don't have that luxury. We don't have the time to step away from a scene and take a break. It's just us. So finding that partner, very difficult. So you and I have had many different partners in, my God, relationships, writing partners, improv partners. There's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot that you should probably look into before you just hook up with an improv partner. So how do you find one? What do you look for?
It's very interesting because I remember during the days of ITC, we were all doing Heralds. So everyone was an 8-person troupe. Maybe over time, usually that 8 people, it got whittled down to about 4. 4 seemed to be the manageable long-form size for folks, and that was the sweet spot. But at a certain point, people started to kind of experiment with duos and build duos and start actually marketing their duos. It wasn't just like, oh, I have a set. Do you want to come join me for a one-off? It's like, no, we have a name and we have a form, and we're going to perform around the city. When that happened, when the great duo rush of, I want to say 2012 happened or whatever, it was so interesting seeing the partnerships that developed. Because there were people who had maybe 4 or 5 duos. Each one, logos, names, Facebook fan pages, all of that stuff. And it was interesting to see those folks kind of navigate their duos. For you and I, it was a little bit easier because I only have 3 friends. So Jason is my writing partner. We wrote a whole bunch of cartoons together. You and I were doing duo improv together. And then the 3 of us would do either a long-form montage or we'd do a 3-person mono scene. pretty easy to pick who I'm going to partner up with. But for other folks, it could be a little bit hard because maybe you don't have such a close relationship. I would say having a close relationship with someone is very, very valuable to you. The intimacy allows you to do moves that are faster. Like you and I can communicate a lot of information just with a look because of our history. I know when you're pissed off. I can just tell. I can feel it. I know when you have a joke ready. So does the audience because you're smiling. But that level of knowledge about the other person is very valuable when you're trying to sort out something as complex as a one-act play performed with two people. If I don't have a close friend that I can play with, someone who has similar sensibilities, someone who wants to work in the same way that I do, and it's kind of like dating where I feel like, it's probably good to date a lot of people until you can figure out what clicks. And when it clicks for you, you're not going to really need to explain why. Like I can't explain why you and I work well together. I don't know. But I do know that when we go on stage, we have fun. I know that when I play with Jason, I'm like, oh, this is always going to be a blast. It just clicks. There's something about the dynamics that work really well together. So those are my initial thoughts about trying to find a duo partner.
Yeah, I mean, the close relationship, like, is that absolutely necessary? No, but as you mentioned, some of the things where I can tell by the look in your eye if you are in it, if you are wasting time, delaying for something because you have a big reveal, but also dumb things that you don't even think need to play. But it's like, you and I both know each other's physical limitations. Like, oh, I know Rob could carry me if I need to jump on his back. I know that, I know what Rob would be comfortable. I know he's comfortable going into the audience. You love going into the audience. Great. All those little things where I don't have to have that half second of, should I make this offer? I don't want to put Rob in a weird position. I don't think there's any confusion in my brain of what would be something that you'd be comfortable or uncomfortable with. So just these little moments, they really reduce fear and hesitation, and also getting to that point of, oh, I know how far I can push. And I know you feel the same of like, how far can I push Rob in one direction? And all of that is in the removal of self-judgment, hesitation. The other thing you kind of touched on that I think is very important in a duo, it's very much, as you said, like dating, where you're like, oh, are we going to like go steady here? Because if we're doing that, there's a few things we should probably talk about. And it's how far do you want to take this? Like, what's your goal? Because if your goal is, I want a Netflix special with a duo partner, it's like, whoa, okay. And my goal is to get out of the house once a week. Whoa, that is a very different set of goals for these two people. And there's nothing wrong with either one, but together there could be some animosity of, you're not working hard enough, or you are taking this too seriously. So having that conversation, it doesn't mean anything has to change in your friendship, but just you realize before you get into any possible arguments or fights after a show, after a few months, just handle this ahead of time. Make sure that you have the same stylistic goals and the same career goals, even a similar schedule. All of that stuff is off-stage things, but very important for forming one of these partnerships.
Yeah, I like that piece about the off-stage piece, because it's going to play a bigger factor than you think it is. How do you fight together? Because let's be honest, like the number one reason why you're going to have problems with your improv duo is because you're going to have a bad show. Like, for sure, you're going to bomb, and it's going to be an important show, or important to you for whatever reason, and you're angry and you're upset. Who's to blame? Are you going to blame the audience? That's probably a good deflection. But often you're like, hey, you did this move that fucked up this move for me, and now I couldn't the show that I wanted to do, I wasn't able to do. Well, how are you going to have that conversation? And so I feel like being able to get along and to communicate, express how you feel. I can't imagine coming to you, AC, and being like, hey man, you hurt my feelings, and you being defensive about it. In fact, you would probably overcorrect so much that it would make me feel so uncomfortable that I would never bring it up again. If you were like just hanging out and I was like, that joke you said, it really hurt my feelings, I would never hear that joke again in a million years, and then I would feel guilty about it. So yeah, I mean, that's a good place for you to be as well too, because those emotions, they gotta go somewhere. They gotta go somewhere.
And just like, any relationship, that kind of stuff, the communication, it just having those difficult conversations make things easier in the long run. So sometimes having it ahead of time so you don't have to break up an improv duo, boof. Yeah, just good things to think about. So you've got a partner, you've got someone that at least you're pursuing this with. What do you think about approaching the work? You've got two people who are used to short form. They're used to heralds, but now they're approaching duo work. What are some things they need to think about as they approach this?
I mean, duos are interesting because for the most part, I think it's easy to discount a duo. If we're on a bill and it's an 8-person herald and an 8-person herald, and you say, I'm signing up with me and my buddy, those two people have to fill the space of 6 other people. It has to be enough of a performance that you can hold the attention of 100 people for a long period of time. So that's going to be an important piece. I haven't seen historically duos succeed with a very difficult technical form. I feel like duos end up becoming more personality based. There's no ensemble in a duo, right? Because you're in every scene, your personality or your characters kind of have to shine through. And you and I, very early on in the process, really figured out how to make that work for us. And our big focus was our relationship. In the same way that maybe some people are like, I actually am not interested in Adam's bullshit thoughts on improv. I just like to see Rob and Adam chirp each other. But that's kind of also the energy of our duo as well, too. It's like, look at these very close friends playing with each other, building scenes. Every show ended up kind of feeling like a reflection of our main relationship. And so that was interesting that we were exploring different parts of our intimacy with a crowd of people. I feel like for you, the duos that I know and I love also have that kind of strong relationship at the center of it. And it's usually 2 strong personalities. For newer improvisers, I don't recommend the duo as an intro form. First of all, it's really hard for you to find shows. Also, like, if you struggle to do a herald, if that's challenging for you, then a duo I think is going to be a little bit out of your reach, because basically you're doing a herald by yourself.
That's so interesting that you think that, because I would think the opposite. It feels very much like when you're a newer improviser, there's a bit of panic of I better say a bunch of stuff because I might be out of the scene soon. And in a duo, you don't have to deal with that. So you can take a bit more time. You can have a think before you speak. And I think you can kind of chill a bit. You can have a bit more silences. And it feels like that might be an easier way to feel comfort on stage before you get into those scenes where you're like, I may have 45 seconds here.
I think the issue is, and you can see this with new students, there's a rush to get into the scene, to say your where very quickly, and then there becomes a rush to get out of the scene. And most of the reason why scenes kind of trail off in a weird way is because somebody wants out of the scene that they're in and the ensemble isn't ready to edit you. So it's people doing their last joke and then feeling uncomfortable. Well, to do, and I mean, if you're talking about doing a duo where your format's 3 minutes, maybe this is true. But if we're talking about a 15-minute, 30-minute, maybe monoscene or montage with two people, like the strain on you to generate that many characters and never have a rest and never have a chance to reflect on what the show needs, it's a lot of work. It's hard on me when we play an Arn and Call show and I miss a chance to spin out into a new scene and our one-act play just becomes a mono scene. I kick myself. But there's some nights where I just don't have the wherewithal to be like, oh, we need to edit out of this into the next scene.
Wow, you just witnessed a fight between this duo cast. But I think as new improvisers and a lot of people that I've talked to that are beginning around this time have been completely Zoom improv babies. They have started on Zoom and now they're opening up, and the duo seems to be the thing that they're gravitating towards. They're craving connection with people on stage, seeing their face, seeing their whole body, and just being like, I can walk around you 360. We've talked a bit about how do you form one, what do you look for? But when you get on stage, what are some of the technical things that you might make adjustments to in terms of your improv? How are you starting differently than other scenes? How are you maintaining throughout a scene? How are you heightening differently? What are your thoughts?
So first things first, I think a nice intro is important. Figure out that intro with your partner and figure out a way that intro showcases what you do and what your personality is. You and I mess with the audience. We mess with each other because we're teaching the audience that the show that they're about to watch, they should be looking for those things. We're not doing like a one-act play in which like you and I take the content of what we're doing without any form of irony. We're hyper aware of the meta drama of what we're doing, and that's part of the show. There are other duos I could imagine who might want to suggest that this is theater, that we are doing a one-act play and it's going to be in the style of Brecht or whatever. And in that case, yeah, you're trying to add a little bit of legitimacy to your improv. You're not trying to undercut it in the same way that we do. When I'm talking about starting scenes, I am really looking to find that connection with you off the top. I really want to be observing you, and I really want to see what you're doing. Because again, in these duo scenes, these mono scenes, the big thrust is going to be us. It's not going to be about the story. It's going to be about the people within that story. And if I don't see what you're doing, or I'm missing what you're doing, or I'm endowing you with things that are irrelevant to the story, then I'm not doing either of us any favors. You mentioned heightening. I would also, again, you could decide to walk in on stage and be like, hello, it's me, the Minotaur train conductor. Get aboard this train to Hogwarts. Choo-choo. You could make that choice, but you're going to have a difficult time at about minute 2. The first 2 minutes of your scene. Because normally that initiation is so wild, it's so absurd, it's a 9 out of 10 initiation, you got one step and then the scene is over. Well, if the scene ends, if it heightens to a point of no return, and you got another 28 minutes, you're in a lot of trouble. And then maybe I might also think about mystery. Like having a mystery, having something unspoken is going to be very valuable in our show. If everything is so upfront, everything is out in the open, you're not going to have enough fuel for this scene. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm going to say one last thing and I'll be done. Last night, we were doing a scene, and one of the improvisers, this guy named Glenn, decided to play betrayal. He was hurt in some sort of way. And so his partner Magda comes and she's going to initiate, and she's playing happy, and so she's kind of chasing him to make him feel better, and he won't be he's not going to feel better. He's just in a horrible mood, and he hates Magda. Well, Glenn's first instinct here is to say, "Hey, you really hurt me." And I went, "No, no, 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 no. If we get into the fight, if we start talking about the problems of our relationship, this relationship is going to change. And in a 20, 30-minute scene, it can't change in the first breath. Like, save that change for the end of the scene. We're going to figure out what's so broken." So I say to Glenn, "You went on a fishing trip recently. Can you feel betrayed, but can you tell her about the trip?" And so he starts describing the salmon he caught, but he's doing it so heartbroken. And everyone in the audience is watching this scene, but it's like, well, that's a normal conversation. They seem to be getting along just fine, but there's something else going on here. So that mystery, I think, is very valuable in a duo because it basically gives you your out. When that mystery is revealed in your two-person improv scene, that's when the lights are pulled.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of this duo work will depend on how long you have, right? If you've got 5 minutes, that's all you've been offered on this show, well, you make adjustments. Right? I always think about the trailer of a movie and then the movie, right? The trailer of the movie shows you all that quick heightening, and you basically see the movie in its highest form in 30 seconds. But the movie's 2 hours, so there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of peaks and valleys. So depending on how much time your duo has, you're going to have to adjust. When you're in a montage, you're probably going to be heightening very quickly. You're going to be endowing very quickly, making choices very quickly. But if you've got 17 to 20 minutes, maybe you can space that out a bit. Maybe you can enjoy living in that vague yet specific world of, I know I'm pissed, but I don't know why yet. The audience doesn't know why, but they know something's up.
Yeah.
Very cool. Rob, we've been talking about what we love, and we've been doing a duo for, 15 years. What are some frustrating parts about being a duo? What's some of the limitations?
Well, the strengths and the limitations are the exact same thing, which is your fate relies on your duo partner. So, if your duo partner's having a bad night, you're going to have a bad night. You're going to have a bad show. If they make a choice that, like let's say I was playing with you and you said an offensive joke, it's not like I'm going to be able to distance myself from this one lone wolf in my troop of 8 people. It's like, no, I'm here with you. We're best buddies. I guess I made that offensive joke as well, too. The audience will hate me the exact same. If your relationship becomes damaged, your improv will become damaged. There's no way to avoid that. So you kind of have to go into that show with a clean slate, which is tricky, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but have you ever loved a band that broke up and you couldn't explain why?
You couldn't
It's like
explain
Blink-182.
why they broke up?
Like, it's like Blink-182 breaks up. And then there's like Angels and Airwaves and
Plus
like
44.
135 or whatever Mark Hoppus was doing. And you're listening to these songs and you're like, these songs are half of a Blink-182 song. I don't know what you guys are thinking. I don't know how bad things were in the rehearsal room, like when you were recording these albums. But whatever negative thing you experienced, the product is undeniably better when you're together.
Right.
In improv, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. If you are having a difficult time, I think you're going to have a bad show.
Yeah, I mean the other limitations to think about. You've got 2 people to help you find stage time.
Oof.
Harold, you got 8 people searching things out. 8 people who've got separate groups of friends and connections. If your duo partner can't make it, I guess I'll find another duo partner that I don't work with usually. Okay. the things like organic group work, obviously, we can't do. Massive physical things, they just don't look as fun with a duo when you've got two sets of arms or legs or whatever, versus you got 10 people. And you can lift someone up, you can fly people around the stage, you can do whatever. But just think the kind of improv that maybe you're used to, it's like, oh, well, we pared things down a little bit. Again, we talked about this earlier, but you don't have someone come in and edit your scene. You've got one person, really, which is the person who has their hand on the lights. You and I have ended our own show quite often. If you just feel like, I think that's it, but the tech person doesn't agree, and we say, well, good night. So just some things to think about of the kind of improv you love, and we just have to make some adjustments.
Can I talk about pet peeve hour for a second? Because you just brought something up. If you're in a duo and I'm producing a show, first of all, if I'm producing a show and I put a duo on, that's a big risk for me. Because the practicality of inviting troops to come play on my show, I'm like, okay, even if no one shows up, but I have 3 Herald troops, I have almost 30 people in the audience.
Right.
And 30 people in the audience is a show. So if I put a duo in there, I'm basically saying, like, I'm compromising the integrity of my show. So I'm trusting that you're going to be great at what you do. Now, if I've booked a duo and taken that chance on you, and I've booked RN calls, and you show up, and it's RN and Brian, I'm going to be so pissed off. Like, you have to let people know if in the duo, one of the people in the troupe are not going to be there. Because that's a very different experience. Playing with RN and Brian is different than RN calls. It's much better, but you don't know that at the beginning.
Yeah, you think of...
And Brian's never improvised, which is weird.
Yeah, Brian is your uncle. I don't know why you brought him. Yeah, you think of any pairing.
Brian is my uncle.
And it's like, I'd like a rum and Coke. And you just get Coke? I mean, come on. If you say a pairing, we like a pairing. Rob, we talked a bit about producing. You just mentioned producing a show. With a larger group, I think there's just naturally more energy. When the group comes up, if it's a Herald team, there's 12 people, and they just create more chaos, more physicality, more noise. So if you're a duo and maybe you're interested in either producing your own show, you're interested in creating a name for yourself, what are some things, again, off stage, or some things that you can think about to help make the duo as successful as possibly a large scale show?
I think figuring out what the story is going to be important. You know, in improv we think, oh well, at the beginning of every show it's an etch-a-sketch and we erase the drawing and we're starting from scratch. But you're not. You're not, because you as an actor, you as a person, you have a story. And so why are these two people performing together? You know, when I talk about like another popular duo here in Toronto is this group called Two Man No Show, what we talked about a lot. And you go, well, why are they performing together? Oh, well, they're a couple of clowns. They're two literal clowns who are getting together who are improvising. Oh, the beef with clowns continue. What have I done? God. Oh my gosh. It's really bad, AC. It's really bad. A mask showed up to my house the other day.
Well,
they didn't even let me make my own mask. It was a pre-made mask.
Oh my God.
And inside of it, there's a label that said loser. And that's the character they want me to play, a loser. Anyways, I'm saying, oh, well, you're gonna see these guys do a lot of silly things. They're clowns. It's going to be very different than a regular improv show. Nothing is safe. Someone will probably fall down. There's a story to them. There's a story to us. Oh, there are a couple of very good improvisers who are very good friends, and you're going to see them rip on each other. What's your story with your duo? Oh, well, I met Brian at the bus stop, and now we're going to perform in a show tonight. Well, that's not going to be good enough.
Why is your uncle at the bus stop?
Maybe he's a bus driver.
Oh.
I mean, we're joking about my uncle, but I literally have an uncle named Brian, and he drives double-decker buses in London. So This is lining up perfectly. Maybe your story is that you're so different. Yeah, like we're completely different. We're completely strangers. We don't know each other very well, and that's what our troupe does. We learn about each other on stage. It is a blind date, but for improvisers. That's interesting.
I think there's a duo in Toronto that are exes.
Yes.
They were a couple.
That's so interesting.
They broke up, but they stick together for the improv. And that's their bit.
That story, like think about being an audience member, being like, tonight is the night where they're going to fucking give it to each other. Tonight's the night where we're going to get to hear the fight that they never had.
Right.
Like that's kind of in the back of your mind every time you go see that troupe. So what's in the back of the mind with folks when they come to see your show? And you may not know it right away. You may not know off the bat, oh, this is what we do. But perform a couple shows and you're going to figure it out. Also, if it clicks, it's going to be very clear for you. If it's not clicking, then you trying to force a story, it might not be a good combo. That may not be your person to have a duo with.
Great. You really ended that with neutral inflection, so I had no idea if you were ending or taking a pause. We love that.
Wow.
Rob, any other thoughts on duos about finding technical stuff, production stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think playing with the duos is great. I would just say make sure you're ready. You know, it's a bit heartbreaking when you start banging on the drum and being like, I have this new duo, we're ready to perform. Like, let us take the stage, let us headline. And sometimes you may not be ready. You may need a little bit more time on your Herald team to be able to tackle that kind of 20-minute spot. Because remember, too, when you're in a duo, every set is now divided in 2 instead of being divided in 8. If I play a Herald right now, I feel unsatisfied because the piece of the pie, which is 20, 30 minutes, is being divided into 8 or 10, which means I get a 3-minute scene. I'm talking for 3 minutes out of the entire show if it's broken up evenly, which it should. In a duo, there's a 30-minute set, I'm talking for 15 minutes. I'm used to contributing that much in a show now. That's like my metabolism. If you're going from talking to 3 minutes at a time to talking for 15 minutes at a time, it is a big jump, and you should be prepared for that and make sure that you're ready. It would kind of stink if you bang the drum on your duo and you're like, we're so great, let us play. You play, and then 2 years later you come back and go, I got a new duo, bang the drum again. It's going to be harder to find shows.
Well, I love talking about it because it's an ever-evolving style. What do you think? Not you, Rob. You listening. How did you find your duo? What do you think makes a great duo? What are some of your favorite duos around town? Reach out to us at the Backline Pod on Facebook and Twitter, or Backline Podcast on Instagram. Rob, what is one cool thing?
Why would I reach out?
You've interrupted everything I've just said, and this is the kind of thing that would absolutely infuriate me because you're in a mood and you have nothing to do, nothing going on personally or career-wise, and you're just antagonizing me. I've got things to do. But you know what? Maybe that's why we work so well together on stage. Rob, what's one cool thing off stage, on stage that you're thinking about?
You know, this has been interesting. I'm going to make a confession right now. And this probably isn't going to surprise you at all, but it surprised me a little bit. The last couple of shows I've done, something has gone wrong right before the show. And one of the shows I did, someone didn't show up, and the producer was like, you're going to play with someone from the audience in your troupe. Your 3-person troupe is now going to be a 4th person. The 4th person has never improvised or stepped foot on stage. Enjoy. And I went, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Another show, half the troupe didn't show up. It was random people kind of joining the troupe. I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. And that's a lot of judgment on my part. It's a lot of negativity. I'm happy to report that those last 2 shows I've done have been the most fun I've had. That show, playing with an audience member, was super hot. It was a blast to play. It was so fun. It was so satisfying. It was so exciting. And the thought for me of, I can't improvise unless I'm playing with my safety blankets, the people who I always play with in the form that I know. That was proven to be wrong. And probably the opposite. Probably playing with the same people over and over again makes the show feel stale. It doesn't keep me on my toes. I'm relying on old tricks. And playing new forms with new people in new situations, that is as close to the core, I think, of the values of what improv is. So big kind of paradigm shift for me. I caught myself with a kind of negative thought, and I'm happy to just correct the course a little bit there.
Oh, we love that. Yeah, I mean, playing at a different theater, playing with different people, it's a great step into a bit of a nervous excitement of like, well, I'm used to my audience. I'm used to my players. They know when I do this move that they do. Like, stepping out of that, I think, is a great bit of fun and a great reminder, especially if you're an experienced improviser, of like that feeling of those early days of like every bit of stage time has a bit of panic, a bit of nervous energy, which is exciting.
Yeah, and I also think it's like the idea of you going in and being like, oh, I can do this. I have everything I need. And being in a situation where you're like, I don't think we can do this. I don't think this is going to be good. I don't think I can pull this off. And then you pull it off. Man, that's improv. That's the best feeling in improv, when you're like, there's no way for me to do a one-man Herald. I haven't rehearsed. And then you go do it, and it goes great, and you go, what? It's like a gift. It's like a magical gift from the gods. So,
and a great bonding experience, playing with someone you've never played, killing a show, and just being like, wow, we did that together?
We're friends now, right?
We're best friends.
We're friends? Like, we're good friends,
yeah.
right?
You'd have to replace one of your three.
I'm not ready for
that. For me, there's another podcast on our network called Self-Esteem Party Podcast by Alana Johnson. Fantastic improviser who I met at the Canadian Improv Games. My God, 20 some odd years ago. But especially during this whole last few years, I've gone peaks and valleys into dark places, and then you come out and you're in dark places again, and it can sometimes feel very isolating. This podcast is interviews, and it's interviewing with comedians. Some you know, some you'll be introduced to, but it's all about where people's self-esteem is, where they can find joy, how they deal with some of that performer anxiety, that failure. And it's a very nice podcast to listen to if you feel like you need a bit of a boost. Because you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, these people are going through this as well. Oh, they have a good technique for when you're feeling like this. So great interviews, the Self-Esteem Party Podcast. Check it out.
And you've been on that podcast, is that right?
I've been on that podcast. I don't remember what episode.
One thing I like it.
You can check out the episode guide, and they're on all the socials. Yeah.
One thing I really liked about the typical episodes, it's like Alana being like, oh, I know you're going through a tough thing, but like you'll get through this. And then when it came to your episode, you're like, I'm going through this tough thing. And she's like, yeah, well, thanks for coming. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think she's very attuned to like who will be okay and who won't. And she just laid it on the ground. Like, you're not going to be good. And Rob, last thing, we'll be announcing some tour dates very soon. So if you are interested, Rob and I are back on the road. If you want us to come to your town, workshops, shows, hangouts, I'll show you all the cobblestone that you may not even know is in your town. You can reach out to us at the Backline Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you like this podcast, you'll like many others on the Sonar Network, which we just mentioned. It's brought to you by the Sonar Network. You can subscribe, hit that bell, leave a comment, leave a review, and help other improvisers find us. Norman, we are in a duo for now. We'll see if we're back next week. But for everybody else, I will see you on Adam Colley Presents the Backline podcast. Bye.
Goodbye.